All right, this is the introduction to transformations of those parent functions that you've learned. So at lesson 1.8, you learned about the transformations, the reflections, and such. Now what we're going to do is we are going to give you an equation, and we want you to transform that original parent function. So I do want you to take some time and write down this entire slide. So we have some kind of parent function. So f of x equals x. It could be an x squared. Erase that. It could be an x cubed. That would be a cubic function. It could be an absolute value, etc. There's many of those parent functions that we already learned. Now here's what happens. We talked about the vertical translation.
Please dial 3702.
Sorry. The vertical shift up and down. Where that happens in the equation is at the end. So that's your vertical shift up and down. If you have a positive k, it's going to shift the entire graph up. If you have a negative k, it's going to shift that entire graph on the y-axis down. All right, the next transformation is the translation lefts and rights. And we got to be careful here. Think opposite and inside. So if we have some parent function and we want to move it to the right, we have to subtract h. Remember the x-axis, we move it to the right, we are subtracting. And then the opposite for left, adding. Okay. Next piece, reflections. We talked about reflections, about the y-axis and the x-axis. If you have a y-axis reflection, it's going to happen inside. If you have an x-axis reflection, it's going to happen in front. And then these last two are a little bit more challenging. These are your compressions and stretches. If you have a vertical stretch or compression, so we're talking vertical axis, it's making something stretch out, maybe skinnier here, we'd say. Something stretches away from the x-axis, you're going to have a number that's greater than 1. If it compresses, it's going to move away from the x-axis, and you're going to have a number that's between a little greater than 0 but less than 1. So think fractions, decimals. All right, last piece here. These are our horizontal compressions and stretches. You always have to think reciprocate and inside. So if you want to stretch away from the y-axis, it's going to be 1 over b. So b has to be greater than 1. If you have a compression horizontally, it's 1 over b, and the b is going to be that fraction again. I know that's a lot to take in. We are going to practice this over the next couple days. Lots of practice problems. So please make sure you wrote down everything on this slide.